Welcome to 2020, Otters. You are watching The Weekender, your guide to everything that's happening in the world of tabletop gaming. This morning, I'm joined by Ben on the screen, Jerry in a chair, Justin in a chair, Lloyd in the last chair. And strap in, folks, because there's some cool stuff on the way. 3D printing is about to take another step forward. Is it going to be a step? Is it going to be a leap? We're not entirely sure, but we do have some stuff to share with you. So this week, Hero Forge put up a teaser for Hero Forge 2.0, which is looking at full color custom miniatures. Okay, this is a brand new 2.0 system. We believe it's coming to Kickstarter. Ben, is it? Is that the plan, or?
Yeah, so it's going to come to Kickstarter soon-ish. Not entirely sure just yet. Maybe some more information over the weekend and that kind of thing. But from what they're saying, it sounds pretty good. So
yeah,
as I said in the news post about this, they've got loads of the stuff down already. So their system for actually creating the models themselves is pretty robust and pretty deep.
It is, yeah.
And the actual production of the 3D prints themselves at the various levels is very good. So this is going to be that next step for them, which will be very interesting. So.
Bring up the picture there till we get a chat about this. Now,
I'm wondering, can you buy the full color STL?
Right. Here's the thing about STL. STL is now about to be replaced, okay, as a file format. Okay. There's a new file format. I can't remember the name of it, but developed by the guys at Prusa, okay, which is a full XML-based file format for 3D prints that contain not only the geometry, but also contain usage rights and color specifications, okay? So 3D is moving to the point where the one file will have all of the color information as well as all of the geometry. So where this is going to go, I don't know, okay? But I am flipping looking forward to speculating on this show for a while about it. So let's go into the actual image itself. Now, I have been staring at this image to try and work out just how this is done. Because full color till now, okay, has been achieved in a couple of different ways, okay? So one of the ways that full color prints have been achieved has been by using a kind of like a powder-based system, okay? I think Shapeways run it out and they call it... sandstone, I think it is. So I think we have a link to that.
Yeah, so this is some of the miniatures they do.
So this technology is actually a fair age. This goes way back to the start of 3D prints. So originally 3D prints were done by laying down layers of powder with a little bit of resin to hold them into place, okay? Now, the originals, the color pigment was very washed out. It was all a bit...
It's a bit drab looking. The first time we seen this was, 15 years ago, something like that?
Yeah, 15, maybe more.
Yeah, I remember whenever... I think it was either during John's time at uni or just before it, he actually got his World of Warcraft character done out as one of these. So he got it 3D printed in full color. And it was, I mean, like even the details at that point weren't really, really good.
Yeah,
but again, that's a low poly model.
The difficulty is, even with a high poly model, that powder effect always gives you quite a strange finish. The finish itself is a little bit, I don't know, a little bit dusty looking. It lacks the resolution.
It's like a rough primer went down.
So it could be this. It could be this. This kind of technology that they're using to make that work. The difficulty is if you go back to their image, if this is an actual print,
that looks more like a 3D render.
That's a 3D render right there.
In which case, what is the point? If you're going to do a teaser, surely you would do a teaser of the end result.
One of the key things that Hero Forge has always done, though, is that character creator. So this is probably giving you a teaser of what it's going to look like in the character creator.
So what you reckon is that this is more about them sticking to the software side, which is all about getting color onto your creations, and then how you get it printed out is kind of up to you.
Well,
You use the Shapeways.
Well, this is what I was going
sandstone
to
method.
ask: is can you get the full color file, or will this be an option where they absolutely have to print it because maybe the machinery?
Well,
or the
like I
technology is
mean,
more expensive?
you can already print it through them, but I think it's already done through Shapeways.
Oh, okay, I see.
I think it's done via that route.
I see.
So what this could be, again, this could be a clumsy bit of advertising. I mean, clumsy in so much as it's working well. It's doing the rounds, but it's clumsy in that they're talking about full color custom miniatures, with the focus being on the miniature, whereas what the reality of this is maybe Hero Forge 2.0 is more about you having the ability to apply color, and it's less about the technology on how the color is ultimately printed out. In which case, if we haven't got a breakthrough, if that's not a miniature, if that's not what the end result is going to look like, then we have basically the atheist, the dead atheist of technologies. It's all dressed up with nowhere to go.
The one thing I'm wondering as well is how customizable this is going to be for the.
What
color
did they say
patterning.
in the write-up, Ben? Did they talk about Did they talk about the miniatures, or are they just talking about the software?
There's pretty much very little else to go on, to be honest, for it. The thing that I would wonder, though, is that it wouldn't seem like a massive thing to go to Kickstarter if you were just going to make it part of the program.
Yeah.
I would assume they're doing this to fund the ability to create it themselves.
They have said it's
and be able to print it off for you. So.
yeah. They have said it's based on existing technology. It's so. I wonder if it's only a render because the Kickstarter is to fund them actually getting their hands on the 3D printers.
Maybe.
Let me talk about two other ways that full color prints or that color prints happen. So another way, we don't have it here, is where it actually slices color paper and puts the pigment into the paper and then applies a small amount of resin, okay, and it actually builds it up. But the end result, yes, is colored, but it's pretty rubbish from a resolution perspective. You know, the detail on it is not
because
great
it looks
at all.
like layers of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like we did a deep dive on this a good while ago where we talked about how you would actually do this. And I think one of the theories that came up was if there was some form of chemical, what am I trying to say? If there was a
Pigment.
way to have, say, a UV cure, but depending on the wavelength would change the color of the actual resin it's curing through, to do your color prints that way.
I don't think that's feasible because at this stage.
I know.
The last way that I know of the color prints are done are by using you can get a piece of hardware. This is on FDM machines. You can get a piece of hardware which can connect to multiple reels.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what it does is it calculates as it's pulling the reels and then cuts and joins the different colors together so it comes out the other end in one continuous piece of PLA or
Filament,
ABS or filament, but in the appropriate colors for that level of the print. But you're never going to achieve anything
Fades,
close
blends,
to that render there.
No.
Now, in terms of 3D, in terms of full color, possible 3D prints as well, Secret Weapon have been building up for their HD bases. Okay, so these is a multi-level 3D texturing technique that they have been working on, and again, I'm not entirely sure how they're doing it. And whether it's based on a 3D printing technology or what. The end result looks very interesting, but flat, which makes me wonder if it's using some kind of like a screen print kind of thing.
Maybe even the aquadip stuff you can do.
Yeah,
something like that would maybe go down.
Yeah,
so it's like a transfer going on to it.
Possibly. So there is. The point of this is that they do see.
It doesn't look a lot different from the whole pre-printed sort of HDF type stuff that we've seen.
Yeah.
It just looks like that sort of stuff cut to a base shape.
I don't know. Again, it's.
Well,
it's
does
a
say
really
it's
interesting
multi-level
time.
and textured.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying it's multi-level because you can see it's like a mill higher up.
Yeah.
You know, that front one, you
Mm.
can see.
Yeah, it's a marble texture across the whole thing, and
So-
they've just cut that.
Yeah, so imagine a plastic base or a resin base or whatever that is, or an HDF base with another layer stuck on top with the color then applied to that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Still pretty cool though.
Yeah.
It is cool.
You have to rock them out in color and go, woo, done. Stick my models on there.
Yeah, job done.
Well, like, you know, it means we're getting to the stage. Like, one of the last big hurdles for a lot of hobbyists is painting. Like, Justin, you're not massively
I'm not
into
a huge
painting at
fan
the
of
moment.
it. I'll talk about that more on the Sunday though.
Yeah, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But it's like it is a big hurdle that's there. And even if this technology is expensive to begin with, even from the perspective of buying a single hero models for your RPGs and stuff, this could be awesome. You know, people are willing to invest heavier in one-off models because we already know that the Hero Forge will do the custom poses. You know, you can customize the models to such an extent.
Well, you've
Then
got
to ability to then add colors and it do the shading.
I have to wonder if each piece of clothing will have just a preset color, or if you're going to be allowed to change that color as
I would
you go.
imagine. Look, I would imagine you will absolutely be able to choose underlying colors, and it will do the shading and stuff like that and all for you. It seems obvious to me that technically that is very doable.
Well,
The
it
key
means
to
that
this
for-
is the output, though, Justin. It's what is the end result. If the end result is that,
yeah, you're happy.
am I happy? If the end result is that,
You're ecstatic.
I'm ecstatic. I think that this industry is about to blow up if the end result is what we see there. If that is an actual print and it comes out like that, and they have found some way to get that quality of 3D print as smooth as that, as detailed as that, because look, all of the fingers are intact.
Yeah.
There's no stepping lines. You know, it's.
Well, that's because that's a 3D render.
But that's what he wants.
This is what I'm saying, though. If
I tell you what, there's one of our club members you should talk to then, Clifford, because he actually got some stuff printed by Hero Forge just to have a look and see what the quality is like that comes out of them.
But I can tell you what the quality is. You know, from our own resin 3D printing, we know that we can now print miniatures.
Oh yeah.
Well, we can print miniatures to a wonderful level of detail with almost invisible levels of stepping and stuff.
Well, anybody that
and that's
saw
on a
John's-
£200 machine.
Yeah, anyone that saw John's battle mech that he did just before Christmas, I set it up to run for him. You don't
Yeah.
see the steps in it.
Yeah, it's we know that we can print minis today, but the key to this will be the output because the software is already pretty much starting to be there in the likes of the Prusa's and the others from the perspective of adding color. If we can't get it out at that quality, then
No point.
As I've said, it's
Dead
a dead
dog.
atheist.
Yep.
It's all dressed up, no place to go. Well, you know, we're waiting for something else. So yeah,
Very cool.
very
idea, very
very
exciting.
interesting piece of news, and I'm very keen to see where that goes. AOS news, okay. The Aether War army set is out. Ben, what do you think of it?
So I think it's kind of cool. It's obviously not going to be everybody's cup of tea, as most of these things are, but it's nice to see them going in a little bit of a different direction, telling a little bit of a different story, because in this one, you get the Caradron Overlords going up against the Disciples of Zench. There's two stories for this one, just so you're aware, just so you can click through the different ones, because the first one we saw was just before Christmas, well, just after Christmas, and then the other one was a little bit later as well, which shows off the army set itself, all that kind of thing. But you get two new characters in the set, so you've got the Magister on his disc, so there's a Magister of Zench there. And there's also the Endrin Master with his weird dirigible suit that will no doubt, again, be quite a Marmite model, but it's out there as well. The set comes with a whole bunch of different flying models and all sorts of things there as well. So you've got loads of bits and pieces in there. So you've got a flying Caradron dwarves, your Duardin, and the little dirigible suits. You've also got some of the sort of airships they've got as well in there. And then on the other side for the Zenchian guys, you've also got the guys on their discs and that kind of thing too, with the Zangors and stuff in the mix there too. This also comes on the back of them doing some extra stuff for the factions as a whole, because they tend to do these new sets as a way of reintroducing the factions back into the Mortal Realms. So
Yeah.
as well as the actual set itself. You'll also be able to get the new battle tomes for the Disciples of Zench and for the Kradron Overlord, which of course comes with loads of new models. New rules and scenarios and all kinds of things like that in there as well. So if you like these factions, they've been updated to fit the new sort of look for Age of Sigmar. So,
What do you guys make of the factions?
I'm okay with the Zench. I really don't like the Kradron Overlords.
How come?
I don't like seeing them with the Rigibubbles. They look too tacky.
Let's get one of these bubbles.
They
up.
remind me of TikTok from the Wizard
I
of
was
Oz
just going to
2.
say that.
Yeah. They do have that TikTok kind of look.
It's probably because of the metallic looking beard and tash on them.
Yeah.
I don't know. For a fantasy world, it just looks too tacky.
Go back to the bigger
Yeah,
picture of the
the-
miniature.
I have this dude.
Yeah.
There we go.
He does it. Someone needs to wind him up.
Yeah.
I think it looks perfectly feasible for the Mortal Realms and what they're trying to do in creating its own aesthetic and look. I mean, obviously, for those people that like more traditional dwarves, they're maybe not going to like them as much. But I think it's a cool idea. It blends together that sort of element of fantasy and steampunk that we see in other properties like Warcraft, for example, with their dwarves and gnomes. So it's something that's been done before. But,
Yeah,
Is there a point-
I think this paint job hasn't helped though, because it really does look like I don't know, sort of a
Squat.
wind up
A
so
wind
like
up.
clockwork
guy.
creature rather than
Yeah.
an actual dwarf.
Is there a
I don't
point
know.
though?
It's too tacky,
in-
too sci-fi. I think.
Is there a point in a war game such as Age of Sigmar where you diversify the factions so much that you start to maybe potentially lose the overall character of the actual game? Do you know what I mean? Where you where suddenly you start to
Everything
bring in,
seems so desperate.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. The world itself starts to lose a cohesion. You know,
I think that's the thing that a lot of people have felt over. I mean, Age of Sigmar's been out for quite a long time now, but I think it's just a thing that people are still trying to get their head around a little bit. Because when we talked about, there was some news about the new Age of Sigmar role-playing game coming out quite soon from Cubicle 7, and even in the comments for that, people were like, "Oh man, hopefully this will give me a better understanding of the world itself and how it all mashes together." Because I think people are feeling, to a degree, some of the things you were saying there, where some of the factions feel like they're very different and disparate from each other. You've obviously then got all the different realms that are entirely different from each other in terms of the different sort of magical essences that they have in that thing as well. So it's definitely something that exists. Although I think I've seen Games Workshop seem to have been getting around to the point where they're trying to deliver something for everybody as well at the moment, which is kind of cool. So
the difficulty with trying to deliver something for everybody is you can very quickly end up delivering nothing for anybody.
Yeah.
well, that's the thing.
And that's my concern in something like this. World building is a very important aspect.
Well, I've always felt kind of lost in Age of Sigmar. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. You know, I don't know why people are fighting. I don't know who hates who.
Yet all of that is there.
Yeah,
But
it's just
it
where
was
to start.
but it was pitched in such an ethereal kind of loose concepty kind of way in the beginning that I believe that the actual background has changed a lot.
Yeah.
over the time, but that initial pitch did make it rather
Yeah, but
floaty.
if I'm wanting to dive into, say, the 40k universe, I've never heard of it before. I don't know what it is. You'll pick up there's 2 books. So there's Plague War, and what was the first one? I forget what the first one was, but there were 2 novels that came out with the Return of Gulliman, and that basically brought you right up to speed with what was going on in the world.
Yeah, but if I want to start a game, the first thing I don't buy is a novel.
Yeah.
I buy the game, and the game should have background history and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
and presumably Age of Sigmar has that.
It does.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
it does.
there you go.
Like if you pick up some of the sort of either the battle tome for whatever faction you're in or anything like that, it does start off with explaining like the fact that Sigmar is fighting against Chaos and Archaon for all the different all points and, you know, the realm gates and that kind of thing. And then they've tried to develop a little bit more of a narrative and change the story with what they've done with Soul War, which you know, starts to push different factions against each other, create that grander narrative for things, because you've got Nagash going up against Archaon with Sigmar on the sidelines as well. So they are developing that grand narrative again, but it's with 40k, there's obviously so much lore behind it, and people have been exposed to it in sort of general culture that it's a lot easier to get into. Whereas obviously with this, they're having to effectively start from more or less
scratch.
baseline. So,
Yeah. Well, if you remember the old world, I mean, like there was so much lore for it. I mean, like
Yeah, but,
but
I'm
not
not
at the
even.
start.
I'm not even talking about the quantity of lore. I suppose what I'm getting at is sometimes it's easier to wrap your head around and to engage with a world that is more grounded. Because if you have a world where anything is possible and everything happens, you lack the ability to actually get the flavor of the world itself.
Then I don't think Age of Sigmar is a world.
realms.
People are still thinking of it. People like myself who have difficulties with it are thinking of it in terms of it's Warhammer. Warhammer 2.0.
The next gen, yeah.
They should have taken the Warhammer name off it altogether because it's not one world where all of these people like Tzeentch aren't in the south, Orcs aren't in the west. They're they're all in their own little. It's more like 40k where they are all on their own individual worlds or individual realms
dimensions,
and occasionally they come into conflict. They overlap with little sort of bubbles. You're better off thinking of it as a completely new game from and backstory and just whole cloth. If I came in with a new fantasy game tomorrow, you wouldn't look at it and go in terms of something you already know. You'd have to start again from scratch.
But here's my difficulty with that, right? If you set up an environment where it's so, I'm struggling to find the word, ethereally open in that sense. To me, it feels so contrived. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You lose that ability to. You look at any of the great fantasy properties, including 40k, which I can consider a fantasy property. You know, the 40k in many respects has planets all over the world, but there's a groundedness to it, in that you're expecting these things. Lord of the Rings. These things are living creatures. Here is the where and the why of they're there. Do you know what I mean?
Rather than just there's a bubble here and a bubble there and they connect once in a while.
Well, it's not even that. It's just this you can almost feel that it's been so purposefully left open so as to be able to create, let's throw something new in there. Let's throw something new in there. And obviously the longer a world is around, the more the threads of things need to be there. It's quite difficult to introduce a new race into 40k now because you would wonder, with the exploitations taking place all across the galaxy,
why has nobody seen them before?
Why have they not been seen before? Because there's a groundedness there. Whereas if it's just a bubble of another realm that just suddenly appears, pop.
It's not too bad for 40k because they actually do have unexplored parts of the galaxy. So they have what they call lucky space out beyond the imperial borders.
Yes, but again, it's one of those things of you'd be introducing a race. What's the motivation of that race? Why is it attacking every other race? It's not an easy task.
They do.
Whereas it does feel to me that Age of Sigmar, and this is where the Cacardon or these overlords start to do this to me. It does feel that, okay, guys, right. If we're going to create a fantasy property, how do we create a fantasy property that gives us unlimited possibilities for constantly introducing new races, new armies, and things like that? How do we remove these constraints that we have seen over the past 30 years that have locked us in and that let us ended up with a dying property where we struggled to add anything new to create new revenue? I admire and understand their reasoning for doing it, but equally, the other side of that is whenever you remove those constraints from the world, getting your head around the world, in my opinion, in my very humble opinion, getting your head around the world starts to become more difficult because the world lacks any grounding to tie it together.
Yeah, for me, it's being able to understand where I am and what's going on is always a huge issue. I mean, like if I'm playing 40k, I know the Emperor's on Earth, and I know that I'm out in this segment of the galaxy. I know I'm going to this planet. It's very much easier to place yourself instead of just going, I am in a realm somewhere, and somehow.
Well, like you look at the number of times you've played out there. You're always playing in that smegma quadrant, isn't it? So, you love it out there playing in among that. So,
Segmentum Pacificus.
yes.
Right. I did catch Jerry out a really good one recently.
Oh, did you?
On the Monday, we were unpacking the GW order that came in for the store.
Yes.
And I passed Shay some Age of Sigmar stuff.
Mhm.
And without thinking, I went, there you go, there's Age of Smegmar. And Jerry just pipes up from the door going, why has no one called it that before?
Well, on the topic of continue with AOS,
I'm
we
sure
have
they
some
have.
more.
Well, there's one more thing in this news story,
Yeah.
which is the endless spells.
Yes. And everybody knows I'm a fan of
Aye.
the Endless Spells.
These look beautiful.
I think the Endless Spells is a fantastic addition. I love the idea of spells being represented on the tabletop. I think it breathes a whole new life into them. I would like to see more variety because, again, you always kind of end up with that thought of the magic firebolt kind of a thing. But
Yeah.
they are
Well,
lovely sculpts.
They are lovely.
I think it's hard to deny that AOS is the best aesthetic
Oh, they've got
that Games
gorgeous
Workshop
stuff.
have in their entire range. Like the Age of Sigmar aesthetic is absolutely beautiful. The sculpts are incredible. When I walk past the Age of Sigmar stuff and I look over to the 40K stuff, I think to myself, it's just head and shoulders above it. It is just
It's all the bright shiny colours that are
It's-
attracting you.
it's not only the bright shiny colors, it is the adventurousness of the sculpts. Obviously the grognard gamer in me looks at them and goes, I will break everything.
Unless you buy something like the Skaven.
But I will break Skaven because they've got lots of little sticky bits.
Oh, yeah, all the little bells and crap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not underestimate my ability to break everything. And that is, I have a Night Haunt army, and every time I touch it, I break it.
Okay.
So, but I can't deny the aesthetic of it is absolutely gorgeous.
No, don't underrate that though. It's one of the reasons I haven't got an Age of Sigmar thing. Is I don't want an army of little chuckies trying to stab me at every time
Yeah.
I reach down. And when they don't successfully stab me, it's because I've broken them.
Yeah.
Jerry, you remember the old Night Goblin Spear Regiment?
Yes, I do.
But they were nice, chunky spears.
Oh, yeah, you would
Yeah.
never
Oh, yeah,
break
yeah,
them.
but you could literally pop your hand down on top of the unit, touch it, and lift like 5 or 6 of the unit up with you because they were stabbing your hand.
Yes, but
They were intact.
I still have night goblins that are 20 odd years old,
Oh, yeah.
and they still have
All
their
that-
plastic
yep.
spears intact.
Yep.
Whereas I've had Age of Sigmar models that were 20 minutes old and lying flat on the table because an ankle or a bit of cloth or a thread broke.
Yep.
It's there is a balance between
An adventurous sculpt and something
and a
that's too fragile
Warren-proof sculpt.
Well,
to be fair,
I
it'd be
don't
a
know.
lump of clay.
I don't
but
know.
Just
Yeah.
thinking
Like
blocks of
there's-
wood.
There's
coloured
one or
blocks
two
wood.
of them, they do just look like they should be on a shelf for display only.
Oh, they all, but there you have it. Right, we have ogres.
Yeah. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff extra that came out towards the end of last week as well. So the ogres are secondary at the moment because I'm just going to go back to something that I alluded to in the last segment where we were looking at I was talking about what's coming next in terms of the story.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a new campaign book coming out which follows the sort of continuation of the Soul Wars, which is where Nagash has raised up his armies of the dead after the Necroquake. So you'll be pleased to know that we're back with those bony guys again, Lloyd, because they're going to be charging into the 8 points to try and take over the Baron Spire. And obviously Archeon is not happy about that. So he's descended from his tower with his sword at the ready and his monsters and his Chaos Legion in order to try and destroy Nagash. Don't know what's happening with everyone else at the moment, but that's going to be quite interesting there. Beyond that, for Warhammer Underworlds, we've also got the new Ogre Hunter, as you talked about before. So this is Hrothgorn's Man Trappers, which is the new tribal gang that they're doing for this game. Hopefully you should know Warhammer Underworlds by now. It's a little skirmish board game that they do that goes down pretty well at clubs and things like that as well.
Yeah.
And this is a new model for them, which introduces a very traditional-looking ogre that a lot of people will very much like, along with some Noblars and his pet Saber-Tusk as well, which is pretty cool there too. And then to kick things off, not kick things off, but to finalize stuff for the Age of Sigmar news for the moment, we also got a little bit of a teaser that Teclis, the mighty mage from the old world, now turned to god in the mortal realms, is ready to bring his, as they say, pointy elves back to the world of Age of Sigmar. So all those kind of traditional elves that you might have recognized from Warhammer and the like are going to be coming back in a new fashion, I'd
more
imagine.
pointy stuff.
Underneath Techless. Yes, so more pointy stuff for you to get stabbed on.
Well,
So,
looking at that, cut out of the miniature, it does look like there's a lot of bits that could break off there.
Well, that brings my agnostic fantasy elf army back into play. I have them pointy high elves.
Yeah.
With their massive fists. I still love them. I still think they're one of the nicest looking armies that I've ever seen. Was Teclis, did he ride around on the dragon?
No, Tyrion and Teclis were the twin brothers. Tyrion was super fighter and Teclis was super mage.
And then Imric rode around on the dragon, I believe.
Yeah, Imric was one of the dragon lords.
Yeah.
But Teclis, it's nice to see Teclis is back. It's nice to see he's still wielding the Moonstaff of Lilith, because I can quite clearly see that in that picture.
Yeah.
The Moonstaff of Lilith. Oh, there it is, yeah.
So that'll be a big crescent moon just disappearing out of picture there, being held aloft by a little elf goddess.
Yeah.
So, it's nice to see that he's still got Lilith on side, even though he seems to have become a god himself.
He's claimed a lot of stuff after that massive cataclysm, apparently.
Yeah, well, why not?
So just walks in and goes, see all this stuff? Mine now.
Well, he was the one who brought magic to humans.
He was, yeah.
Bet you regrets that.
Well, a little bit.
Right.
No work now.
40K.
Should have kept yourself to yourself, Teclis.
In 40K news, we have more Battle Sisters on the way and Tau. Now, it's been 7 years since the last major Tau drop, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
Time has flown.
Wait, I've just caught up to what we're talking about. It's just sunk in. I'm actually to believe it. There's a Tau release coming up.
Yes, there is a Tau release.
There's a new Tau book coming.
Sorry,
where
boy. Easy.
They're going to remove the crit.
Ben, what can you tell us about the Sisters release first and foremost?
Cool, yeah. So obviously last year, wow, it's 2020 already. But last year they did the massive release of the sort of collector's edition version for the Battle Sisters, the Adeptus Sororitas. Now we're actually going to be seeing the proper release of the army with the new codex and a whole bunch of new characters and models and all sorts of things like that. And I believe it's coming out for pre-order this weekend, so watch out for that. And so it'll be here today, in fact. But yes, loads of good stuff for these. We've got the traditional Battle Sisters squads on the way. So if you want your sort of line troops that you need for your armies, you've got them. As well as that, you've got the Retributors. So they're going to be the big heavy weapon people that you're bringing into the mix. And then beyond that, they're also going to be introducing some sort of Jetpack Troopers as well, whose name has now escaped me. I'm sure Jerry can jump back in and tell me what they are. But yeah. And then we've also got the really cool new stuff that kind of is on the fringes of the Adeptus Sororitas stuff, which you wouldn't necessarily have believed was actually going to appear in here. But we've got the Arco-Flagellants, which I think are very, very cool looking models.
Cherubs in disguise.
So the Arco-Flagellants, a lot of people might know, they're the guys that sort of like, a lot of them are like penal prisoners and that kind of thing, that have been sort of grafted on with weird electronical whips and all sorts of odd bionics and that kind of thing. And they're let loose with like a kill word onto the battlefield to kill people and that kind of thing. I believe there's a character in there as well that used to be in 54mm scale as Damien.
Damien from Inquisitor.
That sort of died a death. But he's back in 28mm form now, so that's good.
Did you say died a death?
Artemis and Damien now, which is pretty cool.
Inquisitor's got a massive following. When people dropped it from 54mm, you can just use the rules as is in 28. So if
that's exactly what I did.
There's a huge Inquisitor 28mm face page group, because it was a good fun little game.
Did I see pictures of Penitent engines there?
Yeah, you got regular Penitent engines. And then you've got another one in here as well, which is really, really cool looking. So I'm not sure, is that a character one here, Ben?
They haven't specifically said in the articles that I was looking at, but there's basically going to be a few different variations of the Penitent engine. So you'll be able to build a few different sort of weapon loadouts for each of the different Penitent engines, and then also that slightly larger one, which I would assume from the look of it is going to have a little bit more of like a psychic focus potentially to it as well, because you can see some sort of elements to it, which is interesting.
That sarcophagus looking thing's cool. Yeah.
One of the interesting things I did also read about was something, how we were talking about the fact that they've got the sort of armor sockets and stuff on their bodies.
Yeah.
We weren't sure why that was there. That's because they've kind of flipped the fluff a little bit, and they've done it so that they actually do have links to their power armor through their bodies, and also enables them to be connected up to horrifying engines like the Penitent engine if a sister is to go astray. So they effectively prepare them effectively for what's coming if they decide to turn away from the Emperors.
We know eventually you're going to break.
So,
Therefore, we may as well put these sockets in you now.
Yeah.
well, yes, exactly. Yeah. As well as the different models that you can see there, they've also done a new terrain piece. So this is a new massive Sisters of Battle statue. So you've got the Saint there.
I really
that
like
wonderful
this.
sort
That's
of
gorgeous.
chapel. I think this is really cool. It's already getting me, ideas going around for objective-based games and that kind of thing. Like obviously when they did stuff like Armageddon and that kind of stuff back in the day, they had the Blood Angels defending around the statues of Sanguinius and that kind of thing. And so having something like that where your Sisters of Battle are trying to, save this ruined chapel from being destroyed by orcs or chaos would be pretty cool on the tabletop. But yeah, it's all looking very, very good for the Sisters of Battle, the Adeptus Sororitas, over the next couple of weeks and months, because they're going to get a lot of new releases, which will be really cool.
Right. Tell me about the Tau. Let's get to the
Lloyd,
Tau.
Are you
Okay,
ready?
okay.
Are you ready, Lloyd?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, bring it.
Ooh.
Bring it.
Here you go.
What have we got?
New commander.
Is that it? Oh, that's Shadow Sun. Or...
Shadow Sun, Commander Shadow Sun. So yes, Shadow Sun is back. She's going to be effectively the main character of the next Psychic Awakening book. So that's where this is kind of tying the Tau into what's happening in the wider world of Warhammer 40,000. I think the model looks really cool. Yes, obviously, as a lot of people have said, in the world of Warhammer 40,000, the floor is lava for basically any character miniature. But I think it looks very awesome there, as you can see. And it's good to see more Tau, or T'au, as I call them, because they're all from Yorkshire now. With
Yeah.
that,
Oh.
Tau.
But yeah, very, very cool looking model. Hopefully we'll see some more stuff to sort of go along with that, which would be kind of cool. But
Geez, they
as it
really
stands-
do need to release some more stuff.
they really do, yeah.
Other than the big riptides and stuff, we've seen bugger all for years.
Well, I mean, like, you've got the Ghost Key came out, didn't it?
Yeah,
There
the
was
The big beastie.
a new sniper team, I think, also came out.
yeah, them big
We haven't
riptides
seen a
and stuff.
vehicle, though, in
In a good while, yeah.
maybe 15 years?
Well, no.
What I'd like is some
because,
regular.
The flyer that they did.
Oh, well,
the
yes.
Tau.
They did the Tau Flyer. Yeah.
What I'd like
And I
is
think there was a small skimmer they did too.
some more alternatives to regular sort of sized troops.
Mm.
You know,
Yes.
rather than just stealth suits and regular Tau
Pathfinders, yeah.
and
Fire
Pathfinders and Kroot. You're basically that's about it, really.
Yeah. But you've got
Do you want more species, though?
Vespids.
That's what I'd really like to see.
Vespids
I'd really
never
like to
got-
see-
Sorry, Ben. Vespids never got fleshed out.
Mm.
So maybe if they go back to the Vespid, redesign the sculpt, because I think the sculpt's old now for Vespids,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
actually expand them out into.
Possibly.
Because maybe rather than going Tau, they just expand the Vespid thing and they expand the Kroot thing a bit.
See, I would almost let the Tau have like some, convert it over humans who are fighting with them.
Well,
as
it's in the fluff.
Yeah.
the
I
fact-
don't think
yeah.
there's enough humans in the.
But just
the
if you're looking for
Imperium.
more variety, just to have
so
something other than-
we're looking for more variety. Let's add
By
more of the
Imperial
same. Yeah. It's there's
Well-
enough humans, Justin.
Well-
There's an opportunity for them to. Do you remember I talked about how difficult it is for them to get a new race in?
Well, here's-
the Taus. They're obvious.
Yeah, because
Oh,
the,
yeah,
the whole part
gateway.
is you've got the collective. Anybody who's within the Tau Empire gets subsumed in some respect. And I
Yeah.
can think of one right off the bat that could quite easily come in because it's been there since day one. Bring back squats.
Yeah, I was just
Make
waiting
them
for that.
part of the Tau Empire.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that could be very useful.
You could go that route. I mean, because it does sound a bit ridiculous that they're supposed to bring all these other alien races and
But you
stuff,
only ever see Crypt
and that's it. You know, and one squad of Vespids,
and one
that
squad
was
of
it.
sting wings that nobody ever bought because they
it's-
look like they have a
And
window.
we do know squats are still around because they are in Necromunda.
Yes,
Yeah.
I
Ben.
was going to say it's an interesting one to think about with terms of the squats and stuff because I think it's were they called the
Demiurge.
Yeah, they are like
Half-sized
master
urges.
armorers and artisans and things within the world of Warhammer 40,000. Maybe they could have been brought into the collective in order to make some of their larger ships and new sort of battle suits and that kind of
I
thing.
mean, it doesn't have to be the whole squat empire or whatever they
Oh, no.
currently have. But if there were they were called Hearth worlds, I think. Yeah. Anyway, if they did have worlds that were bordering on Tau space, then it's possible that they could have slices of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a way they can then test if people go, ooh, they're a bit fun. Then they could expand them into full. Here's the not allied to the Tau, the ones who are still within their own borders and are able to punch back when an alien race goes, you're part of our empire now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So-
Was there not another abhuman race, Ratlings, at one point?
Yeah,
They're part of
Ratlings, and they're part of the Imperium.
Yeah. Part of the Imperium.
Rattling
Yeah,
snipers.
they're snipers. Yeah.
Well, I definitely think there's room for expansion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And it doesn't,
but not
it doesn't,
humans.
yeah, but it
go-
doesn't even need to be anything we've even heard
No.
of. This is their opportunity to go.
Yeah, throw in
Oh.
somebody totally new.
Tao's ventured off such and enslaved these people or
Yeah.
whatever.
Freed them.
Freed them.
You do see a lot of alien races in the old Horus Heresy books. They introduced
yeah.
a lot of them, but
Yeah.
they murdered them all.
Exterminatus, Justin.
Well-
Exterminatus.
Great Crusade, while it was still going.
Right. Moving off, we have the Elder Scrolls. Okay, so there's a release focus around March 2020. Ben, what can you tell us about it?
Cool, yeah. So Modifius, over the last couple of weeks, has started to kind of refine exactly what's going to be coming out when the game launches, as you say, in March 2020, so this year. So kicking things off is going to be the core set, and sort of taking a note out of what 7TV have done, Crooked Dice have done with 7TV, and also what they've learned from a lot of feedback from people, is they're going to be doing a core set that doesn't contain any miniatures, but it will contain all the extra bits and pieces you need in order to play the game. So the core set's going to contain things like scenarios and all the rules you need. You'll also get your tokens, cards, and a whole bunch of other stuff for all the different factions and things like the Dragonborn and your characters. And it'll also give you all the things you need to play through scenarios, either solo, competitive, or cooperative as well. Then, to go alongside that, you're also going to get the miniature sets, which you can then buy whichever one you want to fit into what you want to do with the core set. So they're going to be breaking down into the Bleak Falls Barrow Delve starter set, which a lot of people who've played Skyrim will be familiar with. It's the first big dungeon you go into effectively. And this is going to contain the Dragonborn themselves, alongside some of the Draugr that you'd be fighting in there. So if you want to do like a solo adventure or something cooperative, or maybe even competitive, you can play through this with the core set. Then beyond that, they're also going to have two different factions. So the big factions that are fighting within the world of Skyrim. So you've got the Imperial Legion starter set, which is led by Hadvar, who people will know from the Escape from Helgen at the beginning of the game, and some of his Imperial spell swords and the Imperial Guardsmen as well. And then you've also got on the other side, are they the good guys? No one's the good guys. No one really knows. The Stormcloak starter set from the other side of Skyrim, led by Zarald, Thrice Pierced, and Ralof, who was also from this game.
Freedom!
Yeah. So you've got two sort of divergent paths for you to go down there. Obviously, because the game can be played, as I said before, solo, competitive, or cooperative, you can use these as your little warband that you're going to take out and fight other people with, or they could be NPCs that will wander into what you're doing on the cooperative side of things. Or obviously in a solo setting, you've got lots of different things that you can throw in there to sort of, have your Dragonborn fight out against pretty much everything that exists within the world of Skyrim and Elder Scrolls. Beyond that, we're going to obviously see a lot more expansions and stuff like that in the future. Elder Scrolls and Skyrim is pretty massive. I'd imagine we're going to maybe see some dragons, since they've done some really big stuff for Fallout with the massive sort of walkers and things they did. I think it was like the Liberty Titan or whatever it's called. So hopefully they're going to do something with dragons and giants and trolls and that kind of thing. And if nothing else, this will be pretty damn good for you who are going to be picking stuff up for your fantasy role-playing games and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, there's beautiful looking designs. It's and I'm keen to see it. Like it's nice to see video game properties done well on the tabletop.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting to see what the uptake on this is, because it is a very close crossover. People that like RPGs playing their.
Well, Skyrim is a great one to convert because the amount of time people sink into it as a digital RPG.
Yeah.
And being able to play with friends now, because it's the one thing I always want from like Skyrim or Fallout 4 is other people to play
it's
with.
okay,
right.
Justin. I'm your friend, man.
How does Skyrim?
You're a lucky guy.
Friends like you who needs
How does
enemies.
Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls relate to each other?
It's basically all set within the same
all the
world,
Elder
just different
Scrolls.
Because I
stories.
played a game called Elder Scrolls.
Yeah, Skyrim is Elder Scrolls Skyrim.
Because I gave up pretty quickly because
Was
I
it
kept
the
getting
online one?
No, I kept getting killed by some little tiny troll thing that was supposed to be really easy to kill. After about 60 tries, I was like, bollocks to this.
Which one was this? Oblivion or?
Oh, it might have been Oblivion.
It's one of the older ones. Really? That thing killed you?
Yeah, over and over again.
I couldn't even get past character creation because I gave myself like a dragon head,
Right.
and I was green to this point of the neck where it turned white again, and I thought, no,
You not put a shirt on?
I thought, no, that looks ridiculous. If I'm
just
going to be
gonna
green
point
and
out-
scaly, you commit to the reptilian breed, man. I wanted to be reptilian all the way through,
Honestly,
just like the Queen.
You should give Skyrim a shout. It's very, very good.
I was just going to say, I'm just going to point out to all those people who just had a heart attack at Warren saying I was a dragon-headed man. It's an Argonian. It's okay. Everybody knows it's an Argonian.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to call myself a dragon-headed man.
Of course you are.
Well,
do you?
you could be
But someone will
Trogdor.
have had a heart attack about it. So
They haven't talked about
In the immortal words of Bon Scott, dragon-headed man, dragon-headed man.
But Argonian's not far off Dragonian.
Dragon-headed man.
They haven't talked about the core mechanics for the game at all yet, have they? We don't know whether or not it's going to be similar to the likes of Fallout or whether it's a whole cloth new system.
apparently, I've forgotten the name of the guy behind it. He's the guy who's Mark Latham. Is the
Oh,
guy who's
Mark's
done
doing
the
it.
new edition
Oh,
of
is Mark
Batman.
doing it? Yes.
Yeah. So he's taken
Very
up the reins
capable
and-
game designer, that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's taken up the reins and done some stuff in the background to this, and they've learned a lot of lessons from what they did with Fallout.
Right.
So I think this is going to be like this is the new bar for what they're trying to do
Yeah.
for this kind of skirmishy game. So
Yeah.
It's interesting to see where it goes. I haven't played. Last one I played was Morrowind, which I think
Oh,
was
that's gone back a bit.
which I think was the third, might be the second. But I do like the look of the actual miniature, especially the undead in it. So the
Draugr.
just the undead, because Draugr will be the zombies, whereas the skeletons won't be that. But yeah, because they're quite nice, and I could see them fitting into other games as well.
Will this be a similar scale to size-wise to the?
We have one next door,
Yeah.
the promotional Dragonborn
Yes, we
that
do.
they sent in. So
Do you know the way there's
it's
been a big trend towards big
bigger,
minis recently?
yeah. I think it looms on the larger scale of like 32.
Yeah. I believe they're around 32.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So
Okay, next up, we have Gangs of the Undercity. Now, this is a new game that's coming out from Fragging Unicorn Games. Ben, what can you tell us about it, man?
Yeah, cool. So, as you say, Fragging Unicorn Games, already an amazing name for a company.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
awesome. This is going to be coming out on Kickstarter during the summer of this year. And hopefully we're going to be learning a little bit more about it over the next coming weeks and months as well. But the basic sort of like overview of the game is it's going to be a 28mm skirmish game that kind of blends together the ideas of fantasy and cyberpunk. And you'll be building up either your own individual gangs or taking existing gangs that have background and story already built into them from the world of Gangs of the Undercity. And you'll be fighting it out for control of provinces and districts within the city itself in order to build up your gangs through a campaign-style play. What we've seen so far of it, we've got some really cool-looking miniatures in render format, as you can see. Over on social media, they have also been showing off some bits and pieces of their painted models they've done, so some test sculpts and that kind of thing. And it's all looking very, very nice indeed. As someone who was a big fan of the likes of Shadowrun back in the day and that kind of mashup of sci-fi and fantasy, and what they're doing obviously with Starfinder now as well from Paizo, I think this is a really cool direction to go down. Really nice to see what they're doing here. They're taking that familiarity of something and then mixing it in with something a little bit different as well. The story sounds pretty cool as well. So it's all about sort of like these oppressed societies fighting back against the city itself and trying to take control of things for their own ideological reasons and that kind of thing too. So sounds very cool. The miniatures look very nice. And as I say, hopefully we'll be learning a little bit more about it in the run up to the Kickstarter later this year.
I wonder if we'll get a not little Keanu stuck in the middle of it all. 'Cause he'd blend right in.
He
Well,
would. He totally
yeah.
would.
With Cyberpunk 2077 coming this year.
Right. Next up, an interesting one, because I have no idea what this is, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Marvel United, okay, is a team up between Spin Master and Simon.
Okay, you're going to be mildly disappointed.
Am I going to be mildly
Mildly
disappointed?
disappointed. So it is Marvel,
Right.
but it's chibi.
Okay. Moving on. Oh, right. Okay. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, anything with the word United in it isn't very good.
Logo, ref takes a point away.
Come on, dude.
No football references on the show, please. That's how wars are started.
Chelsea fan has stuck in the knife. Okay, Ben, talk us through Chibi United.
Okay, so this is a new project from Simon and Spin Master, and it's helmed by Eric Lang. So a lot of people will know him, obviously, as quite a prolific developer of games within the industry.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I mean, Justin will never win at this game.
No,
But,
I
you know.
never win one of his games. I don't know what it is, whatever way he does his math. I just don't get on with
You
him.
ju-
I cannot win.
You just win.
I
Don't win Eric
never
Lang
win
games.
any of his games.
Uh-huh.
Any game designed by this man, I lose.
That's because you're a
But-
one-trick pony with the Alpha Strike. Take it away, man, and you're done.
But the game looks to be a sort of more cooperative board game based experience where you're going to be taking on the role of the Avengers in their new chibi style, as you can see in the artwork and stuff there, going up against the likes of Red Skull and Ultron, and I believe they've got Taskmaster in the mix as well. Seems to be popping up all over the place in terms of video games and that kind of thing too. But as you were saying earlier, this is a little bit more chibi styled, a little bit more kid-friendly, which I think is interesting. And the team up with Spin Master is the interesting one as well, because Spin Master have done some Marvel games in the past that are a little bit more sort of like mainstream games. And also they are pretty good on the whole sort of kid game style thing. So hopefully when it comes to this, it's going to be a little bit more of an entry project for people to dive into with younger gamers. And obviously those that are massive Marvel fanboys like me, because it looks pretty cool. I'm really interested to see what they do with this one. As I say, I like Eric Lang and his designs. You know, Blood Rage is a big favorite of mine that came out not recently, quite a few years ago now, but Blood Rage is a massive favorite for me. Really like what he's done with other stuff as well in terms of Simon and working on Zombicide and all that kind of thing too, which is pretty cool. And Trudvang Chronicles and that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, looking forward to it. And it may even be based on an existing property and sort of tweaked a little bit, one called Arcadia Quest. So if anyone's heard of that, maybe it's going to be going down that kind of similar route.
That's
Yeah, we know Arcadia Quest.
is that not Ninja Division?
No, there's Super Dungeon Explorer,
sorry.
which is probably what you're
That's the one I'm thinking of.
And then
Sorry.
Yeah.
and then there's Arcadia Quest, which is the one which is done by Simon.
Gotcha.
Okay. Next up, we have two big names: Isaac Childress and Rob Davio. I think that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah,
From
Rob Davio.
Gloomhaven and Pandemic Legacy fame, bringing to Kickstarter Return to the Dark Tower.
Yeah. So some people, you old folk, I say old folk, you old folk may remember a
Yes.
game that was out in the past called Dark Tower, which was voiced quite famously in the adverts by Orson Welles. Very cool. You can see the video in that post down below.
Mhm.
But Restoration Games, who have been working on a whole bunch of older board games, bringing them back to life, like Fireball Island and things, for example, are now working on a Kickstarter, which is coming out on the 14th of January for Return to Dark Tower. Now, the big sort of like thing behind this game is that it's a little bit like a role-playing game, a little bit like an adventure sort of fantasy board game at the same time. But in the center of the board sits a massive electronic tower that sort of governs all the things like monsters that you'll be facing, what you find in certain areas of the game, and also the boss at the end of the game as well. So
Cool.
we're going to see a really cool new board. We're going to see that lovely new tower that you can see there as well. Obviously, with these big names like Isaac Childress and Rob Davio behind it, as well as a whole bunch of other people and some fabulous artists as well, this should be a pretty impressive project. And as I say, Restoration Games have done some good stuff in the past for some of their other games, and I imagine this is going to be pretty much the same. So
Interesting.
Was that a digital thing? Was it a digital chip thing, or was it a VHS type thing?
No, the original one, I think it was a
yeah.
chip in it. The VHS
It
one
was a
was,
chip.
you're thinking of Atmosphere, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the DVD version of that. But it's kind of reminded me of the one you have, Warren, with the 40K computer in it. You turn it on, it goes.
Zargon or what?
Goes.
Yeah,
Zagor.
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 Yeah, Zagor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for example, with the old game, there used to be a thing where you press the buttons and it would go bam, boom, boom, bam, and then something would show up on the screen and it'd be like a dragon, and you had to fight it and that kind of thing, and it would do all the calculations for you and that kind of thing. So,
Well, yeah, should
hopefully
I-
they get that nostalgic, note just right.
Do you want to run the? Do you want to run the?
He
You
does.
can, you can run the
I'm
video.
tempted to.
Go on, do it, Justin.
Do
You
it.
can do it.
All right.
Run the TV commercial.
Just do it. Play the VT.
Video
unavailable.
Huzzah!
Well
Ben.
done. Yeah. There you go.
It was there when I put it in. Oh, no.
You'll have to update that one, sir.
Okay, to round out the show, we've got a Kickstarter to tell you about. Okay, there's 5 days left. It's by Antoni Bonnet Balanzat.
Yes.
I'll have another go at that. Antoni Bonnet Balanzat. What about that?
Well done.
Yeah.
And it's called Sanctor VM.
Yeah.
Sanctorum, but they've carved it
Oh,
in stone.
Sanctorum. Yeah. Okay.
But it's
Go
not
for
just
it,
a
Ben.
V, because that's cool, right? So
5
this is-
days left on this one.
So this is another sort of like cooperative, dungeony, survivory sort of heroes versus the game style game. This one is a cooperative sci-fi survival horror game that they throw into the mix.
You'll like
for
this,
1 to 6
Justin.
players.
Yeah.
It can be played in two different ways. So you can either play it in what's called adventure mode, where the players are going up against an overlord. So think of your typical sort of games in this ilk, where you're going dungeon delving and that kind of thing. And it has an RPG style campaign that sort of runs in the background. Or you can play it in what's called mission mode, where everyone takes on the game itself, and it's sort of run by a little bit of an AI, and it has a cut down sort of narrative mission structure to it, rather than the full RPG experience from the sort of expanded sort of adventure mode, as I was saying before. You'll take on the characters of the La Familia, who are a bunch of rather nice and alternative-looking heroes that look very badass, but maybe not on the side of good in many ways. Ooh. And you'll be going through this game, trying to survive, and those typical sort of horror traits and that kind of thing. The really interesting thing that they've done for this is they've actually tried to look at sort of slightly more unsettling themes and terror and horror and body horror and that kind of thing. So I think Alien and that kind of stuff, Event Horizon, that kind of weird brutality and that kind of thing in the background. So they have said it's not for the faint of heart, so bear that in mind if you're checking things out for this. But they have also done some really cool stuff where they've collaborated with a whole bunch of different writers, artists, and musicians in order to create some really in-depth and interesting narrative for the game. Also, the artwork that you see for it too, which has that kind of a little bit more of like a metal band aesthetic. And then there's also a whole bunch of musicians, as I was saying, so they've done a big soundtrack for the game too, which is something that Jerry pointed out when he showed me.
Yeah, I'm seeing you can get an exclusive vinyl.
Yep.
That'll make Warren happy.
Yes, it does.
Well, the way it's set up is it looks like it's like 90% RPG.
Yes,
because the core book itself seems to be huge. They've got the background and the soundtrack that you can play when you're running that sort of side of it, and then there's a board game that's sort of connected to join them all together. But even things like when it says the villains there, that's actually the player characters. That's not who you're fighting against.
Yeah,
because the idea is, I can't remember why, but the Earth is going away. People have to get rid of themselves. Get out of there. Earth's going to go nuclear or whatever it happens to be. So they build these massive floating cities because they don't have FTL travel. And they just send these off as, like legacy ships. So they are so huge that people can live out their life there, breed, reproduce, and eventually they'll arrive at a new planet. Sanctum or Sanctorum 5 or whatever this is called is one that got lost along the way. And you've got this whole generations of people have grown up there, lived there, died there. Factions have developed, people with weird predilections. You've got this whole sort of underclass that are just being used by the people on top. So the villains are actually just a group of desperate scumbags who have banded together to try and make their life less terrible when they're living in this floating hellhole. So it is very much like Event Horizon mixed with Necromunda, mixed with Call of Cthulhu, mixed with 40K. Put it in a pot, shake it, and go, that's your world. Play there, kids.
Love it.
I'm pretty sold on this one. I like the idea.
Love it. Love it. Right. That's your lot, Otters. Ben, thank you very much. Also, a big thanks to Jerry and Justin and Lloyd for our guided tour through what's been happening in gaming this week. Come on over to OnTableTop.com, and tomorrow we have the XLBS, where Justin...
We're going to talk some hobby. We're going to talk some community hobby. We're going to talk about some of the amazing hobby we've all been getting up to since we've had our break. And we're going to be having a little bit more of a look at... was there something else?
I have some important historical research to share with you.
Awesome.
That was good.
Okay.
Awesome. You know I love a good history story.
Yeah, well, you're gonna love it, man, because tomorrow I'm going to give it to you. Okay, guys, you have been watching The Weekender. Comment below. Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.